Yes, hello to everyone. I welcome you all to this new daily news digest session. Today is 3rd of January, and I have two articles from the Indian Express which I wish to discuss with you all. I'm starting with the first article: Why scientists are installing underwater telescopes to detect ghost particles. This is one topic which has already been asked by UPSC in a prelims examination. Ice cube neutrino observatory. This is the topic we are talking about. Let's try and see this topic in detail. Scientists are deploying two telescopes to detect high energy neutrinos, also known as ghost particles, under the Mediterranean Sea. These two telescopes are part of the Cubic Kilometer Neutrino Telescope, or KM3 NET. While one of the telescopes will study high energy neutrinos from space, the other will examine neutrinos from the atmosphere. यहाँ पे one thing which becomes very important for the students is the meaning of the word neutrino. These have already been asked in previous year questions, and neutrino is a new discovery which has transformed the scientific landscape for the world. These telescopes are much like the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, which can detect high energy neutrinos from deep space, but is under the frozen ice in the Antarctica rather than being in water. Deep space as a term becomes important for students now. Here is a look at what neutrinos are, why scientists want to study high energy neutrinos, and why the neutrino telescopes have been placed deep under the sea. First of all, this article tells you about what is neutrinos. They were detected for the first time in 1959, though their existence was predicted almost 3 decades earlier in 1931. What are they? They are tiny particles, very small to electrons, but without any electric charge. They are one of the fundamental particles the universe is built of and are the second most abundant subatomic particles after photons. Neutrinos are so numerous that about a billion of them pass through a cubic centimeter of space every second. Another thing that becomes very important for neutrinos is, why do scientists want to study high energy neutrinos? Because they are everywhere, but not each one of them is important to study. Scientists are interested in examining super fast, high energy neutrinos that have come from far, far away. And they are so exotic that many of these neutrinos are rare and originate from supernovas, gamma ray burst, or colliding stars. All these are keywords which students should make a note of and prepare about, because UPSC has a tendency of asking questions on terminology associated with these words. उस sense में भी ये important है. फिर going later to this article, why are scientists building these underwater neutrino telescopes? Because they want to detect as to how these neutrinos operate. And these high energy neutrinos, if they need to be detected, there is a need for a large volume of optically transparent material in a place which is extremely dark. Another thing which is to be noted is neutrinos barely interact with anything. Despite billions of neutrinos around us, an average of only about one of them will interact with a person's body during a lifetime. They are very, very uh, uninteractive, to say the least. Apart from this, the flashes of these neutrinos help scientists trace the path of that neutrino, giving them details about its source, the amount of energy it contains, and its origins. Although both frozen ice and deep sea waters provide conducive conditions for detecting high energy neutrinos, experts suggest that underwater neutrino telescopes could be more efficient than ice cube. This is because water scatters light less, which gives a more accurate idea about where the detected neutrinos come from. The one disadvantage is that water absorbs light more, and as a result, there will be less light to emanate. So this is something about the neutrinos that needs to be discussed. Now I am coming to the question that can be potentially asked from this particular topic. So a question that I prepared for you all, which can be asked, is, why are underwater neutrino telescopes considered more efficient than those placed under ice, like the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory? First, water provides a larger volume for detecting neutrinos than ice. No, this is incorrect. Water scatters light less, offering a more accurate detection of neutrino origins. This is absolutely correct. You need a dark place where where light is very rarely reflected. Water produces more Cherenkov radiation compared to ice. This is also wrong. Water absorbs neutrinos more effectively, making detections easier. This is also wrong. 2 is the right answer to this question. Now let's come to the second article at hand, which needs to be discussed. Iran minister in Delhi for talks to boost ties trade with Chabahar. And Iran's deputy foreign minister Majid Takht Ravanchi has arrived in India, and he is going to talk in order to enhance bilateral trade, including through the Chabahar port. Days before Donald Trump returns to the Oval Office, Majid Takht Ravanchi, he is Iran's deputy foreign minister, has reached New Delhi for talks on Friday with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. Iran is looking to increase bilateral trade with India, including via the Chabahar port. And Iran's strategic location is such that it's a very important ally for the country. And sources have said that Iran would also like to get a sense from Indian officials on dealing with sanctions. Why? Because India has stopped buying oil from Iran due to the threat of sanctions, but has continued to buy oil from Russia despite sanctions. Uh, this also is one thing which is going to be under the agenda of this minister. For Tehran, why it becomes very important trade with India? Because uh, economic sanctions were imposed during Trump's first term. And Tehran, that is Iran, hopes that to diversify to other areas, including agriculture and petrochemical products. Apart from that, there is increased people-to-people exchange between India and Iran, and it increases economic activity. Tehran also wants an increase in the number of Iranians who travel to India. Tehran, which is also preparing for the Trump 2.0 administration, believes Washington's maximum pressure campaign against Iran has largely failed. Apart from this, another concern, which from India's perspective, is the regional situation that is going on in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. Tehran has also expressed a concern over the security situation in Syria, where President Bashar al-Assad was ousted by the rebels. Tehran feels that terrorism can flourish again and can be felt in the region and wants to discuss these issues with officials in Delhi. It is a serious issue and we are living in a very uncertain neighborhood. This has been said by the minister. Iran is also building ties with Russia. It has a very amicable relationship with Russia. And they are going to sign a major partnership pact with Russia at the end of January. Tehran also views China as a very important partner, which has economic power spread across the world. So, keeping all these factors into perspective, India-Iranian relationship becomes important, and students should read about it in detail. Now, I'm discussing a question which can potentially be asked in the examination. The question is, which of the following statements about recent developments in India-Iran relations, as discussed during the visit of Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht Ravanchi to New Delhi, is correct? First, Iran aims to increase trade with India primarily through the Bandar-e-Abbas port. This has not been discussed formally as of now. India has continued buying oil from Iran despite the threat of US sanctions. This is not the case. Iran is continuing to buy oil from Russia, but not from Iran. Iran is looking to diversify its trade with India to include agriculture and petrochemical products through the Chabahar port. This is absolutely correct. And last, Iran has altered its engagement with Saudi Arabia and is solely focusing on partnership with Russia and China. This is also incorrect. Iran and Saudi Arabia recently saw a thaw in their relations. So with this, I would like to end today's discussion. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's edition of Daily News Digest. We are going to discuss some of the article from the Indian Express. So without any delay, let's start. The first article which we are going to discuss is regarding this data of Indian Meteorological Department IMD, which announced that in 2024 the world most populous country, that is India, experienced its hottest year since 1900. तो पिछले 100 and 125 ईयर्स में जो IMD के अनुसार इंडिया जो है it is experiencing the hottest year, and this data is relevant, hottest year in 2024. So ये data हमारे लिए relevant है for exam perspective, and if we keep it in GS3, so it will come under climate change. Climate change के according या global warming की वजह से we can see there is rise in temperature. तो ये आर्टिकल हमारे लिए क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है? कुछ फैक्ट्स इंपॉर्टेंट है यहाँ पर, एंड सम ऑफ द आर्ग्यूमेंट्स आर आल्सो देयर. First thing is that IMD is announced that the India experienced its hottest year since 1901, and this should be a key point for policymakers across the country, across the world, and globally too. This as there is no enough data or evidence, but it has been observed that globally there was also increase in temperature. Now, IMD and WMO have warned that 2025 could be another hot year. By all accounts, India is on track to meet its global climate goals. तो मैं यहाँ बताना चाहता हूँ जो INDC है, नेशनली डिटरमाइंड कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशंस, तो उसके जो कुछ गोल्स हैं इंडिया के, बाय 2030 वी हैव टू अचीव दोज गोल्स. तो वो स्टूडेंट्स को रीड करना चाहिए, वो इंपॉर्टेंट है क्लाइमेट चेंज के पर्सपेक्टिव से, और GS3 में, और बाकी हम इसको ऐसे में भी यूज कर सकते हैं एज अ फॉर्डर पॉइंट. Now, Indian policymaker must therefore build several guardrails, for example, frame heat action plan, build sea walls, improve disaster management systems and the weather alert mechanisms, overhaul drainage systems, install irrigation system to combat water scarcity and climate proof agriculture. So ultimately, ये climate change mitigation and adaptation की बात कर रहा है कि ये सारे स्टेप्स लेने चाहिए द पॉलिसी मेकर्स जो इंडिया के हैं उनको so that we can mitigate the impacts of or we can mitigate or adapt to the impacts of the climate change. तो ये important हो जाता है. Next जो है the challenges will be to address the people's vulnerability within without compromising on their developmental needs. So there is one issue with the developing countries is that they have to maintain the pace of development also for providing livelihood to their population. So ये भी एक important है and also we have to extract resources, we have to use resources to feed the population and also to achieve a level of standard of living for the people of or the citizen of the country. So ultimately developing countries के पास ये challenge है कि they have to uh, be in a situation where they cannot compromise with the development needs also. So this is also important. At the same time, they have to address the vulnerability of the people. Now, more than 30% of country's GDP is generated in sectors that are highly nature dependent. That is agriculture, forestry, water and power utilities and construction. So, ये data भी important है. The World Economic Forum study estimates that the agriculture output is estimated to be dropped by 16% in the next 5 years, shaving off more than 2.5% of the GDP. Ultimately, ये बता रहा है कि climate change can impact the agriculture sector to the extent that ultimately it will be its output will be dropped by 16% in the next 5 years. And ये काफी drastic changes we can see. Another report last year by the global construction consultancy CBRE estimates that nearly 50% of the country's infrastructure is at risk due to extreme weather events. And all these extreme weather events are due to global warming or climate change, change in the global temperature, or increase in the global temperature. The Reserve Bank of India has also recognized that global warming can upset the financial stability and growth. So ultimately, these are the impacts on the economy of the country or financial stability of the country, which can be seen due to the climate change. Now, there are some issues also. For example, there is fragmented nature of information and widespread variation in data collection metrics across India. And the climate risk information system is a very good step. At the same time, we can see the systems focus on local level scenario is particularly salient given that climate vulnerability may vary or vary every few kilometers in the country. So there should be localized hazard mapping, I can say. Now, next will be the outdated drainage system. ये ultimately flood की भी बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर कि जो floods होते हैं, that is also part of the extreme weather events which are associated with the climate change. Now, the outdated drainage system that cannot take the stress of more than normal rainfall, planning that does not account for local hydrology and civic agencies, whose role seems limited to organizing relief and rescue. So it's increasingly becoming clear that floods, droughts, cyclones, heat waves cannot be dealt with on a short-term basis or only to tide over emergencies. So सिर्फ हम rescue and relief जो provide करते हैं during emergencies, during climatic events या weather extreme weather events like floods, droughts and cyclones and heat waves, तो वही sufficient नहीं होगा. We have to think long term where we can have a plan for long-term mitigation and also have a target or a vision where we can achieve. For example, we have a target of zero emission. So we have a target of national NDCs, national determined contributions. तो इस टाइप के टारगेट्स को अचीव करने के लिए लॉन्ग टर्म एक प्लान रोड मैप की रिक्वायरमेंट है, नॉट जस्ट द इमीडिएट रिलीफ वी विच वी आर प्रोवाइडिंग करेंटली. सो ये आर्टिकल का पूरा क्रक्स है. इस आर्टिकल से कुछ क्वेश्चन फ्रेम किए जा सकते हैं. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल यू कैन सी कंसिडर द फॉलोइंग स्टेटमेंट रिगार्डिंग द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज इन इंडिया. इसी आर्टिकल से हमें कुछ फर्दर पॉइंट्स कुछ पॉइंट्स निकाले हैं which can be framed as a question. India experienced its warmest year in 2024, surpassing the previous temperature records of 2016 as per the IMD. तो ये भी important data है, correct statement है. The Reserve Bank of India has recognized the potential adverse impact of global warming on financial stability and growth. ये हमने भी डिस्कस किया है, ये भी करेक्ट स्टेटमेंट होगा. Next will be climate vulnerability in India are uniform across the country due to similar data collection methods. So अभी हमने देखा है कि the vulnerability also changes विद इन अ किलोमीटर्स आप देख सकते हो कि वल्नरेबिलिटी चेंज हो जाती है. सो इट इज नॉट यूनिफॉर्म अक्रॉस द कंट्री, सो दिस स्टेटमेंट विल बी रॉन्ग. सो द करेक्ट आंसर विल बी 1 and 2. तो ये करेक्ट हो जाएगा. मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल. द नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल इज रिगार्डिंग राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी. सुप्रीम कोर्ट का भी एक जजमेंट आया है जिसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट बोल रहे हैं नो वन कैन बी डिप्राइव्ड ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी विदाउट एडिक्वेट कंपनसेशन. सो ये राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी है क्या, एंड इज इट अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट और ह्यूमन राइट, किस टाइप का राइट है, इज इट अ फंडामेंटल राइट? तो ये हम इस आर्टिकल में देखते हैं. फर्स्ट हम डिस्कस करें सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट का. सो यहाँ क्लियरली डिफाइन है द राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी इज अ ह्यूमन राइट एंड अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट. ये हमें याद रखना है, इस टाइप के क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स में आते हैं. It is a human right and a constitutional right because it is mentioned in the constitution, but it is not a fundamental right. We'll discuss in the few minutes. Then no person can be deprived of his or her property without being paid adequate compensation. So this is a legal provision where Supreme Court has reiterated that no person can be deprived of his or her property without being paid adequate compensation. ये उसका right है. Now, while also holding that in exceptional circumstances of inordinate delay in disbursement of compensation, the date of fixing the valuation can be shifted to a more recent one. कभी कभी क्या होता है, प्रोजेक्ट काफी पुराना होता है एंड ये जो केस था उसी से रिलेटेड था, प्रोजेक्ट काफी पुराना है, तो जो कंपनसेशन का रेट होता है वो भी पुराना उसी ईयर से फिक्स्ड होता है. बट इन केस की वो ऐसे सर्कमस्टेंसेस हैं, एक्सेप्शनल सर्कमस्टेंसेस हैं जिसकी वजह से जो पेमेंट का कंपनसेशन के डिसबर्समेंट में डिले हो रहा है, तो जो रिसेंट डेट होगी उसके रेट के हिसाब से पेमेंट होना चाहिए. जो लेटेस्ट डेट जो भी होगी उसमें हम शिफ्ट कर सकते हैं लास्ट डेट से. फॉर एग्जांपल कोई प्रोजेक्ट है जो 2003 में लैंड एक्विजिशन किया गया बट कंपनसेशन देने में टाइम लग गया, कंपनसेशन अभी तक नहीं मिला है. सो इन दैट केस मान लो हम 2010 में कंपनसेशन दे रहे हैं, तो हम 2003 के कोई बाद वाली डेट जो लेटेस्ट डेट है, रिसेंट डेट है, उस डेट के अकॉर्डिंग हम उसमें उस डेट में जो वैल्यूएशन होगा उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम कंपनसेशन देंगे या करेंगे. ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट का मानना है इस पर्टिकुलर केस में. So in that case, justice will be served because, as you know, yearly basis there is a lot of frequent changes or increment in the rate of properties. So उस टाइप से हम देखा जाए, और there is also inflation. So उस particular point को हम देखें तो it can be adjusted by giving or fixing the valuation date, or it can be shifted to a more recent one date. So राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी की बात करें तो राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी सीज टू बी ए फंडामेंटल राइट बाय कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल 44th अमेंडमेंट एक्ट 1978. तो फंडामेंटल राइट था पहले, उसमें से इसको हटा लिया गया. आर्टिकल 19 में भी इसका जिक्र था एंड आर्टिकल 31 में भी था. दोनों को हटा के हाउएवर इट कंटिन्यूज टू बी ए ह्यूमन राइट इन अ वेलफेयर स्टेट एंड एट द सेम टाइम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट अंडर आर्टिकल 300A. इसको बाद में शिफ्ट कर दिया गया आर्टिकल 300A में. सो इट इज पार्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बट नॉट under part 3 of the constitution, that is fundamental rights. Now it provides that no person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. Without authority of law cannot be deprived of his or her property. The state cannot disposes a citizen of his property except in accordance with the procedure established by law. ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट का मानना है, and that is also part of article 300A. तो ये हमारे लिए इंपॉर्टेंट कुछ पॉइंट्स हैं इसमें राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी के ऊपर. कुछ आर्टिकल्स और मेंशन है जो इंपॉर्टेंट है. आर्टिकल 32 राइट टू रेमेडी अंडर फंडामेंटल राइट्स एंड इट इज आल्सो अ फंडामेंटल राइट. आर्टिकल 142 कोर्ट कैन डू कंप्लीट जस्टिस एंड कैन मेक ऑर्डर्स. आर्टिकल 226 विच इज अ रिट जुरिडिक्शन ऑफ हाई कोर्ट्स. तो ये कुछ आर्टिकल्स हैं जो इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारे लिए. तो एक तो भी यहाँ पर मेंशन है 1894 लेट एक्विजिशन है. सारे प्रोविजंस याद नहीं रखने हैं, हमें रेफरेंस याद रखना है, ईयर याद रखना है एंड ये आर्टिकल्स को अच्छे से पढ़ना है. दिस इज आल्सो पार्ट ऑफ योर स्टैटिक सिलेबस. सो व्हाट क्वेश्चन कैन बी फ्रेम फ्रॉम दिस? क्या क्वेश्चन फ्रेम कर सकते हैं इसमें? हियर यू कैन सी which of the following statement are regarding the right to property under the Constitution of India. This Constitution's 44th Amendment Act repealed 19(1)(f) and moved 31(1) टू ए सेपरेट आर्टिकल 300A। तो अभी हमने रिसेंटली पढ़ा कि जो आर्टिकल 19 के अंडर राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी था, वो इन आर्टिकल 31A उसको शिफ्ट कहाँ कर दिएगा, आर्टिकल 300A। अकॉर्डिंग टू दिस आर्टिकल, सेकंड स्टेटमेंट, ये फर्स्ट तो करेक्ट हो गया, नो पर्सन कैन बी डिप्राइव्ड ऑफ देयर प्रॉपर्टी एक्सेप्ट बाय द अथॉरिटी ऑफ लॉ, ये भी हमने देखा है। सेकंड भी करेक्ट हो जाएगा। थर्ड ऑप्शन, द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज रूल्ड दैट राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी इज बोथ ए ह्यूमन राइट एंड अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट विद कंपनसेशन बीइंग a mandatory requirement. So it is a mandatory requirement and under this Land Acquisition Act. थर्ड भी स्टेटमेंट करेक्ट हो जाएगा। फोर्थ स्टेटमेंट बोल रहा था सुप्रीम कोर्ट अलाउस शिफ्टिंग द डेट फॉर फिक्सिंग प्रॉपर्टी वैल्यूएशन ओनली इन द केस ऑफ रेगुलर डिले, नॉट इन एक्सेप्शनल सर्कमस्टेंसेस। तो अभी हमने पढ़ा है कि इन केस ऑफ एक्सेप्शनल सर्कमस्टेंसेस द डेट, वैल्यूएशन डेट कैन बी शिफ्टेड टू मोर रिसेंट वन, बट नॉट इन द केस ऑफ रेगुलर डिलेस। तो ये फोर्थ स्टेटमेंट जो है वो गलत हो जाएगा। तो इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर क्या होगा, 1, 2 and 3। First, the first statement is correct, second statement is also correct, third is also correct, and fourth is wrong. So, this type of question can be framed from such articles. So, this is all from my side, and we'll meet again. Thank you so much.